Welcome everyone to week 4 of Young Men, the podcast. We are so glad that you guys decided to come and join us this week. If you guys have been watching the previous episodes, you know we've been having some troubles with audio and a little bit of editing. Hopefully most of that should be all sorted out in this week's episode, as well as we have the new backdrop for you guys this week. We hope you guys appreciate all the changes that we've made. And if you guys are enjoying the episodes, let us know down below in the comments. Go hit that subscribe button, go hit that like button, and give us some feedback, guys. Now let's get into week 4. All right, guys, welcome to week 4 of Young Men, the podcast. We're so excited to have you guys here with us, and we think you guys are going to be excited for this topic.
I know we are.
Yeah, it's been definitely a week. It's been interesting. We've had lots of ups and downs with audio and editing, and it's just been a little bit of a nightmare, but we got it all sorted. We got the third one out to you, and now we're on to the fourth here. We've got the new setup. We've got some, firearms.
Basically, that's all we added. But there's some books and some whatnot on top.
Books and a backpack up top, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, we're just, I guess, something else to look at besides us, because I know it gets tired to look at something as pretty as me.
Yeah, I know. Just a total stud, eh?
Yeah, oh yeah, big time.
Okay. So yeah, last week we talked about men's roles as fathers, which working with that is also as a husband. But we are both in our 20s or approaching our 20s, and so we think that it's even more necessary to talk about where a lot of young men are today, which is in dating relationships.
Yeah, for sure it is. And that's this kind of season we're in, even though he's not married yet. It's what he's moving into, but most of us guys between 18 and 25 aren't married. There's some, but most of us aren't, and that's kind of our target demographic for the podcast. I mean, we love everybody who listens, but this is who we feel that we're trying to speak to the most. And yeah, dating is the season that we're in. I feel a lot of us are out there looking for women in the world, trying to find a girl to spend the rest of our lives with. And that's just what we kind of want to talk about today. We do want to focus not specifically on finding a partner or being in a dating relationship and a lot of things that go along with that. Today, we're going to very specifically focus on what a man's role in a dating relationship is. It's kind of what we've been looking at here for last week and the week before, and next week is going to be on singleness and a men's role in the world in singleness. And so yeah, we're sticking very closely to that topic. So I know there's going to be a lot of you guys who are going to have questions like, oh, I want to know this, I want to know that, can we talk about this? Because dating's fun to talk about, right? Like we're all guys, we all love to talk about girls and that kind of stuff, and it's exciting. It is a good time. It's something to be excited about. But today we really want to just hone in on dating and what our role as men looks like in that kind of a relationship, or else we are going to be here all day.
That's the thing. Is it just there's too much to talk about when searching for a relationship, in progressing it, in how you relate to your partner's family, and like there's too much to talk about that we can't just get into dating as a whole, but it's specifically how we believe men should act in a dating relationship.
Yeah, it's easily like one of the most talked about topics in the world is dating. Just dating in general. There's so many podcasts and videos and books and all this kind of stuff about dating these days, because it's kind of a newer idea. So us humans are just having a frenzy over how do we kind of run this the proper way. It's definitely something that's interesting, fun to talk about, but it's a lot to unpack. And so we just want to unpack a very specific part, try to keep our podcast a little bit shorter for you guys, because we know you guys are busy and we don't want to steal your whole day. We want you guys to be out there living the world and just being good examples of what a man should be in this world. And you can't do that if you live behind your cell phone.
So to kind of cycle into the podcast here, one of the biggest things in being in a dating relationship, and something I'm very happy that my dad prefaced for me, was always keep in mind marriage when dating. Now, this doesn't mean that when you're dating, you have to think about the date and the proposal and all these different things. but more along the lines of don't get a relationship if you do not think that that person is a possibility of someone for you to marry, and don't stay in a relationship if you know for a fact you won't marry them. Obviously, dating is something where you are getting to know someone, you're getting to know them in their times of struggle, in stress, when they are working, when they have time off, in all these different areas, so you can see how you work with them and whether they impact your life in a positive way and whether you impact them in a positive way. And keeping that in mind, once you know that marriage is not a possibility, dating is losing its purpose. And so we can dive into why that is, but dating was not something that was very prevalent in centuries before, right? It was arranged marriages and just your family knew this family and that's a good woman and man, here you go. And obviously times have shifted and now we're more about individual choice and choosing our partners and finding somebody you want to spend the rest of your life with. But that being said, when men these days are getting into relationships, a lot of times, and I've felt this, like relationships have bountiful benefits of having somebody who you can be around with, hang out with. But one of the problems is we don't prioritize it like we should, in the sense that when you get into a dating relationship, your life isn't just about you anymore. Me and Caleb have been talking about before how your heart isn't your own, and I wanted you to kind of unpack that thought.
Yeah, it was something I was kind of looking at closely this week, and I tried to unpack this week through some podcasts on my own and some reading and some sermons as well. But really looking at the idea of when does your heart stop being your own? Because I think what a lot of men miss these days and is that they get into this relationship and then they treat her as if she's just one of their friends, just one of the guys. She's very beneficial. She helps us out. She provides us, love and affection, and maybe she lives with you and she cleans up after you, and you really appreciate that, and maybe you provide for her, and maybe you guys have more of a traditional relationship that way, and that's all good and fun. But as soon as it comes to anything that you want to do, her ideas are never taken into consideration. It's just whatever you want to do, you're following your own heart. And I think as soon as you kind of move past that getting to know her stage, and it's important to have that stage, you you're not going to spend the rest of your life with every woman you take on one date. That's not what I'm saying. It's not what I'm asking of
Yeah.
you. But if you're going out for a little while and you guys go, hey, I want you to be my girlfriend now, and I want to be your boyfriend, we believe that you're stepping into a place where you're giving this woman the idea that you're now intending to date her to marry her, and that should now be your goal. Not that that has to happen 2 weeks after you ask her to be your girlfriend. No, not in the slightest. Brian's getting married here in the next couple months, and they dated for a year, which is even short for a lot of you guys. The last relationship I was in, I dated for a couple years, but they were lucky enough to find a relationship where they have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
They kind of have the same values in so many ways. They're just going to be willing to commit to each other and walk through life together no matter what happens. And I know not all of you guys are in a Christian circle or like a religious circle that encourages that kind of behavior. I get that. That's okay. I'm not asking you to step into that right away. But what I am saying is if you're going to ask her to be your girlfriend, you should see the kind of woman or like wifey material. You should see that in her. And if you don't see that in her, then don't ask her to do that. You're hurting yourself and her. So you're taking away from their ability to one, date other people, and have their own hearts and desires, explore more of who they are personally, because you're not always ready for a relationship right away.
Yeah.
You're taking away your ability, or you should be. The problem is they don't, but you should be taking your ability away to talk to other women, to make other friends in that realm, and to have your own heart's desires leading you, kind of, because I know that's kind of how the world goes about it. And I have my own opinions on that, but that is what a lot of the world sees is, follow your heart, do whatever you want to do, and that's what's going to make you happy. Whereas I'm saying when you decide to ask a girl to be your girlfriend, your heart is no longer your own, and You need to make decisions with her. Now, that does that mean every time the boys go out, you have to bring her with you? No. Does that mean every single waking minute of your day has to be spent with her? No. But it does mean you shouldn't be spending alone time with other girls. It does mean you shouldn't just be saying, "Hey, the boys want to go to Mexico for 2 weeks. I'm just going to go. I don't really care what you say." I can't be super specific to everybody's situation
Yeah.
because I don't know all of your situations. What I'm saying is, in general, if you're gonna do that, don't just take off and text her when you're on the plane. Yeah, I'm out of here. And I say that because I've seen it happen. I had a friend of mine, an acquaintance, we're gonna say, and he had this girlfriend. They'd been dating for, I want to say, 2 or 3 years. I don't know exactly, and we're not gonna talk about any names here, but he got a job opportunity to go work in another province, and we were sitting around the campfire in my backyard talking about it, and he says these words. He's like, "Yeah, I have nothing holding me here, so I think I'm just going to go." And I could visibly see the pain in his girlfriend's eyes as he said those words. She wanted to cry. Like, she was sitting there, and this man says, or this boy rather says, "I'm just going to go." And it's really sad to see something like that happen. And you know what, maybe they were able to make it work, maybe something happened, but to visibly see the pain in her eyes that she's not even considered in this, she's not even considered as something that's holding him back from going anywhere. He's committing to spend several months and maybe even years out of province, and she can't, doesn't have the ability right now to move with him or go with him. Like, they were young, 18, 19 years old. They don't have the ability to just pick up and scoot out.
Yeah.
Like, he had a job opportunity, but she didn't. She couldn't just do that. And so when you commit to a girl and say, "Yeah, I want to be your boyfriend," that means you have a certain level of responsibility, and a certain level of your heart is now hers, and she needs to be considered in everything that you're doing.
Well, that's the fact, is that when you're getting into a relationship, you're insinuating that there is going to be a level of effort, communication, and time dedicated to the person you are going to be in a relationship with, which means that for you to have this relationship prosper, you need to put those three things in it. You need to put in time, you need to put in effort, you need to communicate, you need to be in relationship with this person. It's just like when you have friends, your friendship is not going to prosper when that friend doesn't talk to you for a year. You're not going to be close friends anymore. Like, we're close friends because we talk to each other almost every single day. That's how we've become close friends, and we talk about life and we talk about our values and our thoughts of what we want in the future. And that's what makes a relationship strong, is by testing yourself and bringing your struggles to each other and talking about these things. And so when someone is having this idea, "Oh, I want to go do this thing," or even if it's less than that, even if it's not, "I'm going to go work in a different province for a year," even if it's, "I want to go to Mexico for 2 weeks." Yeah. um if you want to do that, it's not to say that you can't do something like that. It's not to say that you have to spend every day with the girl you are with. It's to say that you need to communicate. You need to talk to this girl and say, "Hey, this is something I want to do. What do you think about it?"
Yeah. Yeah. Your heart's desires aren't your own hobbies and your own adventures you want to go on in your life. You now have this person who's with you. And so Brian even has like this kind of a situation that he has to balance, and not that there's no issues, has never been an issue or anything like that, but he's got this situation that he's got to balance. He's got a fiance that he's planning to marry soon, and he's got school, and he's got the podcast, and he's got his woman, and he has to figure out how to balance all of that. So I'm gonna let him tell you.
Yeah, so my situation is I'm going to school. I'm in engineering physics at the University of Saskatchewan. I also work for the university. I also work as a tutor. I do this podcast, and then I have a fiance who I try and spend as much time as I can with, every single week. And so,
She lives out of town as well.
yeah, she lives 45 minutes outside of the city, so it's always a trek, but she comes in for school as well. But so we figure it out. But the thing is life is so busy, and all these things I can spend as much time as I really would want to. But with this relationship I have, I know that if I decide, "Oh, I'm just going to do this podcast for, you know, the next 3 days, and I'm not going to really talk to her, not going to really spend time, messaging her, calling her, or going out to see her," she's not gonna like that very much. And to be honest, I'm not gonna like that much either. But the thing is you can't just run on what you think you want to do or what your desires are pulling you towards, because there is another human being with their own,
Feeling.
with, yeah, exactly, yeah, with their own, I don't know why I was using the word, but their own feelings, their own understandings, their own desires, right?
Yeah.
And their own opinion of your relationship. And so I cannot view this relationship as just me and she's just a part of my life. In some ways, she integrates herself into my life, and I have to plan things around that. It's these things come second to her.
Yeah, it's even important for me as his friend to realize that like I can't be on his case all the time. Hey, I need you over here tonight. Hey, I need you over here tonight. And I love this podcast, guys. And we've both been
Yeah.
working really hard at it, and we've obviously made some impacts. We've had some of you guys reach out to us, and that's been amazing. And I've loved that. I really enjoy that part of the podcast, and I get to dedicate pretty much as much time as I want to this, right? I don't have any specific obligations other than my working hours to anything, right? And yeah, I need to go hang out with my friends sometimes. Yes, I need to get out of the house, get out of my room and, touch grass. But I don't have any obligations to a woman or something like that in my life. So if it's, Friday night and buddies go out to drink and I don't really feel like going out, I don't have to choose between them and the podcast. I can just stay up until 4 in the morning and work on the podcast. Whereas Brian, if he has to get up and go out and see his girlfriend the next day, can't do that. It's not an option, and it's not something I would ask him to do. So I think that's also important to look at. Just quick here is the community, and you guys are gonna hear us talk about your community of men is so important. I need to not only understand what he has going on, but I need to respect his boundaries that he's set, and he makes time for me, guys. Like, don't hear that. He's not making time for me. He makes a lot of time for this podcast, more than I could ask anyone else I know. And I really thoroughly appreciate that. But I also need to be understanding of his situation. I need to be in contact with him. I even got in contact with his fiance and said, hey, if I'm bugging him too much and Brian's stressed, or you're not seeing him enough, you're not feeling like you're getting your fair share of the Brian pie, let me know. And it's important that we do things like that as men, okay? We need to be in touch with our friends and what's going on in their lives, and we're not always doing that.
Yeah, and the thing is too with that is it's not in any sense that I was neglecting her. Like, even like, just to preface that, like, even when I talked to her after he had messaged her, she was like, "Oh, I didn't think there was an issue," but she really appreciated Caleb reaching out, because it's just establishing a line of communication in a way of understanding that there's an expectations that come with being in a relationship, and not just because I'm about to be married, but this was even the case when we were just in the dating stage, in that it's not just the guy, or it's not just the girl in the relationship, and it's not just the benefits that the other person can provide for you. It's a relationship, and those are inherently something that are working together with two different people or three different people if you have friends and things like
Yeah, and I wasn't trying to say that either, and he knows that, but just so you guys know, like I was just trying to get ahead of the eight ball, right? Like I just want to be in a position where we can always deal with it, because no, Brian would never ever put aside time for me or his fiance that is too much. I'm never getting too much, she's never getting too, that would never happen on purpose.
that.
But what does happen is life gets busy, life gets crazy, and you go, oh my word, I haven't seen her in 4 days.
Yeah.
I barely talked to her. How did this happen? That is a very possible thing. Like it would never happen on purpose, but even me, I could be stressed out about this podcast.
Yeah.
Last week, I spent, a couple nights till 4 in the morning here getting the podcast out because I had some editing things sat on my editor's like help site and couldn't figure anything out, and had to scrap some of the editing I was doing all week and had to go back and do it all again, stay up late just so we could get it out. And it put me in a stressful situation where I needed a little more help from Brian, and I reached out to him. He was there for me. It was amazing. He had time for that.
Yeah.
But there's going to be times where my life is overwhelming and maybe I'm nagging him too much and I don't even realize it. Again, that's why it's so important to have a community that's there to support you when things are going one way or the
Yeah.
other way. You need somebody who's kind of in the middle. Like that's why you can't just be by yourself. You need three or four dudes there when you're tipping off the side a little. They're still in the middle so they can pull you back up. And then when they're falling down a little bit, you can pull them back up. That's just how life works. We need to, as men, really work on looking at stepping into those kinds of things, getting ahead, being in communication with our girlfriends, making sure that we're taking just as much time for them as we are for other things. And I think it's something that's hugely missed in this society. It's like we've gotten into this era where it's like, even if you're in a relationship, boys still come first because the boys are there when she leaves. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, but why are you in that kind of a relationship if you think she's the kind of girl that's going to leave you? And yes, I understand that you cannot plan for everything, okay? I was in a relationship for a long time, thought I had everything planned out, went haywire. Happens. I get that. And then the boys were there for me. My brothers were there for me when she left. Yes, that was important. That was crucial. One, your boys can leave. I'm sure everybody has a story of a friend.
We experienced that.
Yeah, everybody has a story of a friend that was there for you. He was like a brother, and then all of a sudden, gone. It happens. But more often than not, the boys are still there. That's why that trend is there when the girl leaves. But you need to ask yourself a couple of questions. Why am I dating this woman if I'm so concerned about her leaving that I don't want to spend time around her? We kind of addressed being absent in your relationship. Essentially, that's what that is. But now you're in your relationship and you're not being absent and things are still going sideways. You feel like your relationship isn't really working out, but you like her. You find that you guys have a lot in maybe common, not that you have to have everything in common, but you guys share a lot of similar values and stuff like that. You think she would be good for raising your children and sorry, like in partnership with her.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
Not just
not her
having
raising you
kids
or
and
with
leaving. Yeah.
yeah, but you see a lot of good qualities in each other and you really appreciate that, but there's still things that are going wrong. You're still arguing lots. Why is that happening?
So yeah, there's lots of ways that men fall short in a relationship, but one of those things that we've kind of touched upon is that a lot of times people can, I'm not even gonna just say a lot of times people, me, you, pretty much everyone has been stubborn and is stubborn about the way they think about things, the opinions they have on things, and don't really want to change that. They kind of just like where they're at. Um, and so people will try and look for the perfect person. They'll try and look for the person that likes all the same music, likes all the same sports teams, likes all the same sports, likes to do all the same things. They don't, because what you're trying to find is yourself. And talking about being in a relationship with yourself, you don't grow from that because growth only happens when there's tension. Like I've only ever learned when I was pulled one way and then I was like, oh, I have to think about this, I have to do something about it. Let's work on it. And so something that Jordan Peterson, I know we mentioned him a lot. One of the things he talks about is in a relationship, peace is only found after 1,000 fights. It is not about finding the perfect person. It's about finding the person that you are willing to work with, that you are willing to understand and who wants to understand you, and that you were able to work with through the adversity, through the struggles, through the different love languages. Some people want physical affection more. Some people want to spend quality time. Some people just want to know that you're thinking about them. I know that in my relationship, like I will see Rachel just spark when I say, "Hey, I got this for you because it just made me think about you." And you just see this big smile because it just showed that I was thinking of her. And so it's just people have different love languages, but you only understand this when you work through it. Maybe it's because they got mad at you and said, I don't think you're spending time with me, or I don't think you're doing this for me enough. And maybe you just didn't know. Maybe you're just sitting there and you're like, oh, I didn't realize that you needed this. Right. And that's not wrong. People are different. And so you need to work in the struggle. And so one of those things that men need to do is we need to prioritize communicating and looking to ourselves if we are the problem.
We need to prioritize learning to communicate because it's something that men struggle with, whether it's about our emotions or about things that we're thinking in our mind or just anything like that. Men tend to really struggle. There's a lot of like stigma around that. Like we've been told as kids, you don't have to feel to be a man. You just you don't talk about feelings, you don't do this, you just get through. You just survive. And when there is times when that is applicable. There is times when that is necessary, but it also leaves us a lot of us dull, and we live in a world where you have to talk about your emotions. You have to talk about, you know, the things going on in your mind. You have to communicate that with them. And not only the things you're thinking, you need to take a genuine interest in what they're thinking. And if you're not willing or ready to do that, like, I'm not saying you can't be in a relationship, but I'm saying you should probably seriously consider whether or not you're actually ready for one, because that's the communication is everything. You can just live with somebody, but then you're just living with them, or you're just being around them a lot, you know. What is that? That's not really a relationship. It's more of a contract. Like,
Well, there's even relationships like that, well, where the couple will live together and then sleep in different bedrooms. And like they just basically don't associate with one another because there's just too much drama, there's too much tension, and neither of them are willing to humble themselves and say, I'm sorry for doing this, or hey, I want to know how you are feeling.
yeah. And we need to learn to unpack that as men, and some of us are more blessed with that gift than others and more understanding of that. And so, I would encourage you to not only just think about it yourself, but talk to people who know more. If you see your friend who has a really good relationship with his girl, and you know that he talks to her lots, and you know that he's kind of annoying because he talks about his feelings too often, but they might have a lot of good information. That there's definitely a part there that's really important to understand and to really look into, and you can't always understand for yourself by reading or just thinking about things yourself, or sometimes you need other people to talk to help you understand what's going on.
And what's so good about having those people is they can let you know when you are the problem. Because sometimes you can bring something to somebody and say, hey, this is happening. I don't know why, whatever. And just everything's against me. And that person can sit you down and say, actually, you're doing this and you're doing this. And you are not helping yourself by doing those two things.
Yeah, a good friend shows tough love.
Yeah.
Tough love is super important. We talk about this again and again, but you grow in discomfort. You listen to people like Jordan Peterson talk about David Goggins. Okay,
Yeah.
guys, the reason that they encourage it and the reason that men feel drawn to him is because he lives in a lot of discomfort, and you can watch this man grow, and yes, he suffers, but he's all the better for it, and he will tell you that. And I guarantee you, he can tell you thousands of stories of the people's lives he's impacted through that kind of mindset, through that kind of thinking. Being truthful with yourself is hard. The truth hurts, because often it it's true.
Yeah.
Like, simply, that's it. You might be being a complete douchebag.
Well, sorry, no.
You
Well,
have something to say.
well, that was the thing when you said tough love. Well, it's not even like love. Again, we talked about this in a previous podcast, but it's not just the romantic feeling. It's the desire for someone to be at their best. It's you want the best for someone, regardless of how you feel about them. There's lots of times you can be extremely annoyed with someone that you love, but you still love them because you want the best for them and you care about them. And so, in those circumstances, you know that that person who's really struggling and it is their fault, you'll tell them because you love them. It's tough love because it sucks, but then that's the only way they can move past it. And so, just to touch on Jordan Peterson, but again, read his book, it's really good. Um, but one of the things he talks about is when there's an issue, don't beat around the bush so much. Approach the issue and say, hey, I'm irritated when this happens. I don't know why it happens. It could be me, it could be you. I just want to know why. And that is so beneficial because you are actually humbling yourself. And he talks about you have to be ready if you're the problem. You have to be ready to understand that, okay, maybe it's my fault and I need to fix something and that sucks, but now we can fix it instead of sitting in that awkward silence of, well, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to be wrong. And the other person doesn't want to say anything because they don't want to be.
Yeah, and talking about relationships and stuff like that, there's a lot of different methods of beating around the bush that happens.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we just people don't want confrontation, they don't want to feel rejection, they don't want to feel like they were the issue,
Yeah.
they don't want to be told that they were the problem. And I kind of had something like this happen very recently, actually, where I, felt a little bit of rejection. It happens, and it's
It
okay.
happens, yeah.
um but I chose to take the path of not beating around the bush, and I've also taken the path of beating around the bush, where you guys get into those situationships. I've kind of been in one, not like really long term. Like I know some people have been like 7, 8, like sometimes a year long or more situationships, where you're kind of talking to this person and you're not really going anywhere because you're pretty sure if you ask them out they would say no, but if you don't ask them out they still talk to you.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. It's not worth it, guys. It's not worth wasting your time on. And not that that person is a waste of your time, and spending time with them can be good, but if they're not going to say yes, then just let them say no so you can move on. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's something I experienced very recently. There was a girl I was talking to. I had high interest in her. I appreciated a lot of the qualities that she had, and yeah, she really had a lot of the things. She checked a lot of my boxes, we'll put it that way.
Yeah.
And I kind of like softly threw it out there a few weeks ago, would you ever be interested in going out with me? And she replied, I'm not really looking for anything right now, but you know, there was not really a definitive answer.
Yeah.
Because and the reason she gave that was because I never really asked her a definitive question.
No.
And then a couple weeks later, I'm getting ready to go away. I'm getting ready to move to the farm. I've kind of had enough of that. I go, you know what? Like, here's the thing. I'm going away, and I want to know, should I be investing more time into getting to know you? Because right now you're like, yeah, let's hang out in groups. Let's be, let's hang out. Let's see what's happening. And that's great and all, but I want to know if I'm wasting my time. Is this something that you actually see going anywhere?
Yeah.
And the answer ended up being no. And you know what? It wasn't a lot of fun. I did not enjoy that answer. It's not what I was looking for, right? I would have hoped she said yes, but she gave a very understandable reasoning. She's like, yeah, like there's some things that, about you that I don't feel like I'm going to be compatible with you. And they were very understandable, to be honest.
Yeah.
Brian read the messages, like he can see it, very understandable reasons. And she wasn't mean, she wasn't hurtful, she just said it how it was. And yeah, it wasn't a whole lot of fun,
Yeah.
but now I don't have to worry about that. And I saw her literally earlier today, and there wasn't really a lot of tension between us. We were able to just hang out. I talked to her a little bit, and it was fine. But
Yeah.
now I know exactly where we stand with that kind of thing. And you never know what the future holds, but don't hold out hope anymore. You got your
Yeah.
no. Let that be that, and just move on with your life. And we need to be willing to just cut through the bush sometimes and say, "Hey,
Yeah.
what's going on?" And that's what I did. And she thanked me for this. She's like, "Yeah, thanks. I appreciate you, not beating around the bush, not saying, 'Hey, you want to hang out? You want to hang out? You want to?'" It gets annoying. It actually does the exact opposite of attracting them.
Yeah.
It pushes them away. And
Yeah.
I've been very bad at that. I like to make that clear. Like, I have definitely beat around the bush lots before. And it's just a waste of your time. It's not helping you or anyone else. And whether that's in the early stages of a relationship where you're trying to get to know somebody and you're going to get rejected, or whether it's in a long-term relationship where you need to know, are you the problem?
Yeah.
You just need to ask sometimes. And yeah, it's not always going to be fun, and there might be some healing that has to be done. There might be some fixing that you have to do, but get the process started now, so it's not a year later or 5 years later or 10 years later and you're having to fix this issue still.
Yeah, well, and so something I really, because you were just nailing it off the dome there, but something I want to touch upon is the issue with dwelling, because that's the thing about, you weren't burning a bridge when you asked if she was interested. You were saying, okay, I have this interest in you, and I mean, we can both experience this, like even in like years prior, where it's like when you're interested in somebody and you don't know what the answer is, you will just sit on that, and you'll just like, oh, I wonder if they're interested in me, and you like to spend time with them, and you'll keep doing that, and it just consumes you because you just dwell and you don't know. So it's important not to dwell as a man. That is one of the biggest things that we need to fix in our life. We need to be decisive. I mean, that's the thing I even have I struggle with, where it's being indecisive, where I just kind of want to do the right thing all the time. I want to say the right thing. I want to do it in the right way. But the problem is that I'm just dwelling and I'm causing myself more stress. And my dad repeatedly tells me all the time, stress kills. Like, and it's true, right? Like, stress is what gives you wrinkles. It what causes you health issues, heart issues. Um, it all comes from you dwelling on something. And so we need to be better at just moving past things, whether that is a relationship or sorry, whether it is a possible relationship in which you don't know if somebody likes you or not, or whether it is in a current relationship and there's a problem. If you just sit in it, all it's just gonna eat you up. It's just gonna burn you inside and you're gonna damage yourself.
And you don't you don't look very manly when you're sitting there just kind of twiddling your thumbs, waiting for things to happen, waiting for a woman to make decisions for you. Like, yeah, I know that's like a thing. It's like we need to move away. Women can make just as many decisions, but ladies out there or guys, ask your ladies when a man is super indecisive and is kind of like, just like playing footsies with you. Is that really something that is attractive to you? And 9 times out of 10 or 10 times out of 10, I'm gonna go ahead and put my money on no.
Yeah.
Like, that's just not. We're supposed to be the more. I don't want to say aggressive. What's a good word? You know?
And like sparks initiative.
Yeah, like men are supposed to be the ones really taking initiative in relationships. We're supposed to be going out there and doing that. And man, we're already running this long for you guys.
I mean, it's kind of a cringe saying, but it's kind of true. Where you can either sit there and allow everything to just hit you wave after wave after wave. And I don't know about you, waves freaking suck. Like I like it's like especially like oh like we went to the water park a few years ago. When you just get a face full of water and then you start like coughing up and snorting water and then boom you get hit by another one, like that sucks. Like you feel like you can't get up. And so at some point you need to stop just sitting there and you need to, duck under the wave or turn your back to the wave. Do something that isn't just going to get you a face full of water. And that comes with taking initiative. Don't sit in the issue and not do anything about it. Humble yourself. It's part of growth. You can only by facing the wave and not just letting it hit you all the time.
Yeah, it's so true. You guys, you need to start really taking initiative for your actions, taking into account the things that you want to do and get done. And if you're sitting there wasting away, letting like kind of playing footsies with a bunch of different women, being indecisive, you're not getting anywhere in your life.
No.
You can be accomplishing so many things. Even when I was like being indecisive recently with that girl deciding if I'm going to text her, if I'm going to leave, it was affecting my ability to do this podcast. Like even last weekend, or was it 2 weeks ago?
No, it was weekend.
Yeah, no, it's 2
like
weeks
oh
ago
yeah, I
now,
guess
yeah.
well now is the weekend. It was
Yeah.
last week.
Yeah, we were sitting there trying to do the podcast, and like she was on my mind a lot, and I was really struggling to do it. Like I was struggling to be present with you guys because I had other things on my mind. We need to try to stay focused as men. Pick our battles one at a time and don't just leave old things kind of floating around up in the air, distracting you. Just get them over with. If she's going to say no, she's going to say no. There's plenty of fish in the sea. And yeah, it sucks waiting. I am not a fan of it. I would love to be in a relationship, and I'm so sick of dating. Okay, I get that, but just let it happen. And one of the interesting things that she said to me when I was talking to her, Brian didn't read this part of the conversation, but I was talking earlier that night, and I said like, she said within the first 2 minutes of meeting a guy, I can typically tell if I like them or not. And I think if you ask most women, they would say that. And it's not even just based purely on attraction. You're just, oh my word, like I can prove to her that I'm this and that.
Yeah.
And maybe, probably not.
Yeah.
And yeah, sure, some of it has to do with attraction.
Yeah.
But there's also some of it that has to do with your mannerisms. And every woman's gonna find different things attractive. That's why you see dudes pulling way out of their league sometimes. Like, quite honestly, is because this woman found his mannerisms very attractive. The way he talked, the way he acted, all these different things, found it very attractive. And so she liked him despite the fact that she might have been way out of his league.
Yeah.
It happens. It's women are way more about those kinds of little minute things that we as men don't really pick up on, and we more so worry about, are we attracted to them? Is she gonna be fun to be around? And those are all good and well, and we can talk about that in a different section. But often they've decided like that, and you need to go ahead, and as a man, we get stuck, so we just need to go and get out of that rut. If we're pretty sure they're going to say no, just let it happen so you can move on. And you don't know what's going to happen in the future. She might change her mind. It does happen. I chased a girl for forever. I eventually landed her, and for a while there she was actually really happy with me. And we had a lot of good times together, and she started to enjoy my mannerism. But it kind of takes sometimes getting that rejection out of the way and moving on. And don't hear that they're for sure going to come back to you if you do that. Do not hear that at all.
9 times out of 10, it probably
Very
won't
slim
happen.
chance. Very, very slim chance. But if you have any chance of acting normal around them, being confident around them, and just being like just yourself around them, that is what women want. They don't want you to kind of pretend to be this guy that you're not so that you can try to attract them. Women can tell when you're doing that, guys. Women can tell. But if you're going to have any chance of that, you just need to go, hey, do you like me or not? And probably not in the first 5 seconds of meeting them. Some of you guys might hear that.
More eloquently
Yeah.
than that.
Yeah, definitely more eloquently. I said it more eloquently than that. He can vouch for me on this.
Blunt as he's saying it is.
But we just need to go ahead and get that out of the way so we can move on with our lives and focus on our own things, and the right one is going to come your way.
Yeah, the important thing in life, like what I've been finding as like I've kind of been improving myself in this like past few months, is maintaining momentum is so crucial. Like it's what was so hard like half a year ago, or maybe a little bit more longer than that, is I just felt just still. And it's just so hard to just actually like pick up and go somewhere, because I'm like, I don't really know where I'm gonna go. I don't really know how much resistance I'm gonna feel if I go that way. So it's just so helpful to just pick something, whether it is like I'm going to strive for school, but if you're like in, oh, sorry, let's talk about relationships here. I'm getting kind of off topic and like talking about different things, but in your relationship, let's just say that you're running into issues where you're like, okay, I'm going to pick this thing. I know we've been having this issue. I'm going to try and improve this. I'm going to talk. I'm going to communicate, and we're going to go somewhere. And then once you start going, then when issues come up, you can kind of say, oh, okay. And then you kind of use your same methods as before, and you keep moving. And once you have momentum, it's so much easier because you are used to, feeling the resistance, but then pushing through, and feeling the resistance and pushing through. And then just you feel so much more fulfilled when you have something going for you. The problem is the more you sit, the more you dwell, the more you don't do anything, the more you're just going to feel the weight piling. The weight doesn't stop piling on you. You just stop lifting it off yourself. The response, one of the biggest things that comes with being a man is don't leave other people to pick up your weight, because people aren't always going to be there for you. Your community can try, but at the end of the day, you need to help yourself. And we'll talk about that a lot next week. We're talking about being single and how we should be comfortable with ourselves, but just that is a prerequisite for being successful in a relationship. Like there was a study I had read. um I was reading some studies to prepare for this podcast this week, but one of the biggest things about satisfaction in a relationship is that the person was happy with themselves before. It was a 4 times better predictor than the traits of their partner was whether they were comfortable with themselves. The person who's satisfied with their life, that they felt like they had feel accomplished and they had things going for them, they were the happiest in a relationship. And so it's important to take the weight off yourself as much as you can. That doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It just means you have to try.
That goes into something that we've been talking about the last couple weeks here, is finding a way to ground yourself. If you're not rooted in something and you're going into a relationship thinking that you can ground yourself in this other person, it's not going to work. And if you guys, I would encourage you, like, I don't have time to talk about all that. I would encourage you to go listen to the other ones and find that for yourself. Like, it is important that you are grounded in something that's not your relationship or your job or your career path or anything like that. You have to ground it in something that is going to be around longer than you will be.
Comfortable with yourself, satisfied with yourself.
If you're not comfortable with yourself or satisfied with yourself, then you're not, and you go into a relationship thinking that she's going to be what makes that happen for you, it's probably not going to work.
No,
you guys have kind of seen those relationships before. Like the people are there and they exist for each other, and you kind of like this is kind of like not healthy. We can identify that from the outside, but somehow when it's our turn to get into a relationship, and I'm guilty of this, we do the same.
Yeah, it's important that you are aware. And again, to touch upon that, like a lot of dealing with issues in a relationship, a lot of improving in a relationship and allowing it to prosper and fostering it to be something that is beautiful is being aware of your partner's emotional state, aware of your own emotional state, and aware of the issues that come up and the reasons why, and being curious to ask questions why, and just always keeping your mind open, because the moment you commit to stubbornness, the moment you commit to saying, I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to dwell, well, like I said before, the weight's just gonna pile on you. Nobody, it's just gonna pile on you. It doesn't care. The struggles in your life don't care whether you are suffering because of it. The problems don't just stop because you're tired of it. They stop because you say, I need them to stop. I want them to stop, and I want to work with the partner I'm with to make.
Yeah, I think one of the last things we kind of wanted to talk about here is kind of actually a good segue into it is men, when we start to lose control over the things in our lives, tend to try to tighten our grasp around something we feel we have control on. And that is often our relationship and our women. And sometimes we are like choking them out, guys. We're ending the relationship ourselves. We're in our lives around us. It's one of the things that ended my relationship was I was losing everything. She was the only thing that I had going for me, and everything else around me was kind of unknown, scary, or falling apart. And I was losing control over it, and so I was leaning more and more into trying to find myself in her, and she got cold feet and she left because there was nothing to me. She had ended up just dating somebody who was almost an extension of her own person, and it's too much. It's you can't ask that from somebody else, and that's something that guys can definitely do. We lose control in the world around us and our jobs and stuff like that, and we turn to trying to control the women around us, or the woman that we're dating. And the one interesting point that I got told about that was, if you can't control the things around you, why would somebody want to listen to you trying to control them? Like, doesn't make any sense. If you can't lead good outside of your relationship, why would that person you're with want to follow you?
Yeah, you don't listen to the bridge builder who only builds bridges that fall apart. Because why would you? You see the fruit of their labor, and if the labor is, or sorry, you see the fruit of their labor, and if the fruit is rotten, well, that's not a fault of the fruit, right? That means that the person is not doing the things in their life that they need to. And so one thing I wanted to track from that is because you're talking about, you know, sometimes you lose control of the situation around you, and that's not always your fault. I don't want to say that just because you're not being man enough, you're not whatever, that you lost your job. Like sometimes it is just, and you know that too.
Yeah, sometimes there's circumstances outside
Yeah.
of your control that do happen. Being a man isn't about being able to control all of those things. It's what you do in those kinds of situations.
Yeah, it's about your response. And so I wanted to touch upon that because the controlling of women in a relationship is a huge issue. And it doesn't just happen when somebody is like it definitely happens when somebody is losing control of the circumstances around them, but it also comes from a lot of childhood trauma. There's a study I was reading where it talked about how specifically boys in this case who had experienced fatherlessness homes, neighborhood fights, essentially just a hostile environment when they were a kid, are significantly more likely to be manipulative, even if they're charismatic, but they're manipulative. They manipulate women. They desire lots of sexual partners. They desire exerting that control over those people who sometimes don't know any better, or they kind of trap them in the relationship. And how we remedy this, because sometimes like it's not the kid's fault who had a hostile environment as a kid, and sometimes it's not your fault that your environment is falling apart, but you have to be aware of what that stuff is causing you to do, and you have to be aware of how you are affecting the people around you. And so instead of trying to exert control over the people you're with or the girl you're with, talk to her and talk to your friends and talk to your community, whether that is your parents. I have a great dad that I can talk to. I have a wonderful friend that I can talk to. And you build that community and you can just talk to people and they will help you. If you try and control those people, the control doesn't look like a fun dance. It looks like you suffocating them. That's the control, right? A community is the people you work with, dancing, whatever. And then if you're the one exerting control, that means you are grabbing them. That means you are choking them out. And you can't do that because you are only going to damage them.
Yeah, so kind of to wrap up here, guys, have good communication, have a good community around you, and be the opposite of complacent.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a genius. That's 3 things that start with a C. Just kidding. The other one is the opposite of it. But like essentially, like that kind of wraps up a lot of what we were talking about. Be in good communication with your friends, with your woman, with like just your whole community. You need to understand it and have a community.
Yeah.
So important that you have people that are going to support you, whether it's coaches or a father or good friends, people that aren't only going to be encouragers of the things you're doing, but checking in with you, keeping you accountable, there to kick you in the butt when you're going the wrong direction, and not being complacent. Don't let things just kind of take you, you know? Don't just let life don't just get on the roller coaster of life and just ride.
Yeah, don't
you know,
succumb to the current.
Set the direction that you want your life to go and stick to it. Yeah. I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Wrapping it up for this week.
Well, guys, that's week 4. Thank you so much for coming out, and we'll see you in. All right, guys, that wraps up week 4 of Young Men, the podcast. We hope that you guys learned something. We hope that you guys appreciated the podcast. If you have any feedback, if you have anything at all, guys, feel free to reach out. Go to our Instagram, youngmen_podcast. Hit us up in the DMs. Let us know what you guys want for changes. Let us know any ideas. We want to hear them all, guys. And if you guys have ideas for future episodes, feel free to shoot them our way. We do have a lot planned out, but we always want to be hearing from you guys. You guys are the reason we do this. So just let us know down below. Let us know on our Instagram page what you guys think and anything you guys want changed. We appreciate all of you guys. If you made it to the end, you guys are our biggest supporters. Thank you so much for coming out. We really appreciate you, and we hope to see you in week 5.